Hello, everybody, and welcome back to On Track GP. We're just after finishing up with the qualifying in Las Vegas, and I have Sam from Planet F1 here with me today. How are you today, Sam?
Yeah, very good. We were just talking earlier, quite tired, but
Yeah,
that's what happens when you report on Las Vegas from the UK. So, but yeah, I'm good all
yeah.
other than that.
Unfortunately, the timings don't really suit us here in the UK, but
Hmm.
like you said, that's what we have to work with. So, all in all, an interesting qualifying, I think. A few surprises in there throughout the three sessions.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, I think surprise is probably the best word for it. Like, we had a lot of people going out early. We had a lot of people sort of qualifying higher than we expected to. Really, like, yeah, it's very much you either having a really good day or a really really bad day. I don't think there's anyone who sort of said that was all right, but there's it's pretty much like it was either really good or really bad. So yeah, quite an interesting quality. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully, leads to a good race tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully so. There's obviously after the results we've seen in qualifying, there's a couple of teams and cars out of position. One team in particular is none other than McLaren. Both cars out in Q1. That was a
Hmm.
bit of a surprise, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like McLaren sort of came into this weekend. They were very honest. They said we don't think this is going to be our weekend. Like if anyone knows about anything about that McLaren car, it's very good at like high/medium speed corners. And looking at the Vegas circuit, there's not a huge load of them. You got like that probably that last one that flies onto the final finish line straight. But other than that, it's a lot of twisty tight corners and then just ridiculously long straights. So it wasn't going to be in McLaren's favour. And I think, but even saying that, I think they weren't expecting Q1 exit for both cars. I mean, to begin with, it looked like Piastri was the one at trouble. He was finding it hard to sort of get a good lap in. But then you saw Norris, like right at the end, also drop down. So yeah, just a terrible session for them. And like sort of, you start to ask now, what can they get out of the race tomorrow? Like, yes, there's some, in theory, slower cars ahead of them, but like, at the same time, like if they're not able to do it in quality where like the situation is perfect for you, like it's going to be hard to do in the race. So yeah, I think it's just one of those circuits. Like, and we've said this so often this season. Like, it's been a season where the cars have been really circuit specific. Like we see, other than Red Bull, who've been pretty consistent across the lot, other than Singapore. Um, Other cars have really fluctuated depending on what kind of circuit we're at. And it's just another example of that. And for McLaren, it's just the worst possible time because they're really trying to hold on to that position over Aston Martin. And then Aston Martin have had quite a good quality. So yeah, it's not ideal timing. Like I think they're just going to try and do damage limitation for tomorrow, really, and like maybe try and get points. Like they'd be maybe an outside shout for top P10, P9, that kind of spot. But yeah, a bad day, but I think one they may have thought was possible.
Yeah, I think the whole idea going into the start of the weekend for them was that they're going to struggle there. But a
Hmm.
couple of other things from Q1 as well. Obviously, there was a bit of a now. I'll admit I didn't fully catch this. I was a little bit busy with social and stuff at the time. But there was a bit of not a coming together, but a bit of a hold up in turn 15 towards the final seconds, and a bit of a shuffling between Ocon and Verstappen. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What was going on there?
Yeah, I think if anyone knows those two, they've had quite a long history dating
Yeah,
back to when I forget which race it was now, but it was a few years ago. Max was in the lead and Ocon got overtaken at a lap and they hit each other. Since then, it's not been the greatest relationship. But yeah, I think I don't think you should read too much into it. I think Max is quite a sweary guy. Like he'd say that about anyone, I think. But yeah, it's just a case of every driver's trying to get their perfect lap, and that sometimes means they're trying to like either overtake people or like sort of be in the best position to go for their own lap. But they're very selfish at the end of the day. They want the best for them, obviously. And I think Ocon there's always been this sort of like gentleman's agreement, like you don't really overtake on your warm up lap. But I think Ocon just for whatever reason decided to do it. And Max wasn't having it. He just overtook him again going into turn one. So yeah, it was just a little bit of like getting your elbows out, trying to like, no, it's my turn to have a good lap, get out of the way. And I think that radio message from Max, like I said, I wouldn't read too much into it. Like he would say that about anyone. He may even say it about Checo if Checo is down the road from him. So yeah, it's just the language he uses, which is absolutely fair enough. You go at 200 miles an hour. We all know what it's like when you're in a normal car and you get road rage. So yeah, I can understand him being a bit annoyed. But yeah, I think they're probably all mates still. Well, as much mates as those two could possibly be.
yeah. But there's a couple of things coming out of that session as well. There's a couple of drivers under investigation for failing to follow the maximum delta time again, and of course Lance Stroll forgetting what a yellow flag is for the second time today. Moving
Yeah, I
on.
mean that's.
Sorry, go
So
on.
I was just going to say on Stroll, like he's going to have a hard time arguing the case, isn't he? In the stewards room, he's like, "You were here an hour ago for doing the exact same thing. Why are you back again?" So yeah, I think that's probably maybe another penalty, maybe a reprimand he gets away with. But yeah, they're not going to have the best view of him having just spoken to him like an hour ago.
Yeah. So hopefully you can remember what a yellow flag is come tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be good. That's the step one of being an F1 driver. Know what the flags mean.
We'll move on to Q2. Obviously, Q2 as well. More names dropped by the wayside. Big names. Firstly, Sergio Perez setting a lap with a few minutes to go, thinking he was safe, and sitting in the pits, he got knocked out. What do you think of that? With the track, coming to the drivers and getting so much quicker with every lap and every session. A bit of a foolish move, that I thought.
Yeah, it did. It did seem an odd choice of strategy from Red Bull, who usually get it bang on. To be honest, if people don't know, like the track will get quicker as it goes on, and that's a case of more rubber being put down from the tires, especially a circuit like this where it's very new tarmac. It's not a racing circuit, so it's not like they've got F2 cars going over it and putting rubber down. It's like completely new for the F1. So yeah, like you'd think as the session goes on, it's going to get better and better. So yeah, it just seemed a bit of an oversight. I don't really know what the reason was. Maybe they thought they were safe and they thought, yes, Perez's first run is good enough. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, it proves that not to be the case. I mean, it wasn't like he was P11. Like I think he's P13 or whatever. So he was quite a way out of getting into Q3. So yeah, just a rare blunder from Red Bull there. And yeah, I wouldn't put too much blame on Perez for that one. I know it's easy to blame him after his Q3 troubles this year, but like I think deciding when to go out is very much a team's decision. Like a driver doesn't have a huge amount of say in that. Like they're not the ones with all the data. So yeah, I think that's more on Red Bull rather than Perez. But obviously, it doesn't look great for him when he's down there again, trying to stop Hamilton from taking P2. But obviously, he got a bit lucky because Hamilton is also down there with him.
Yeah, well, that's the good news. One bit of good news for Sergio Perez is the fact that Lewis Hamilton's next to him. He got knocked out in Q2 as well. Was that just an issue, pace issue from Hamilton's side, do you think, considering how well Russell did in the end?
Yeah, I think that's the surprising thing. I think Hamilton's obviously, I think the stats, I think it's like 11-9 in Hamilton's favour in terms of qualifying this year between Russell. And I mean, he had an interesting radio message afterwards. He sort of said that was as fast as I could go. So he wasn't like hinting at a problem with the car or a problem with the track or maybe he got impeded. So yeah, it definitely seemed like there was just a pace issue there for whatever reason. Like the Mercedes car isn't a great car. We know this. Like it's really hard to find what it's good at. Like I think the main problem they have is getting it in the right window. So like the right setup and like with a weird situation that we've had, obviously with FP1 running for such a short time, and then, yes, there was an extra half an hour on FP2, but like that doesn't make up for the session, and maybe they just haven't got the setup right for Hamilton, and they've done it a little bit better with Russell, and like drivers tend to not want to copy each other, maybe for an ego thing, but mainly because they believe their setup is the better one. They think it suits them better. So yeah, there's just something about whatever Hamilton's done, and that's not great news for the race because, as most people know, like you can't touch the cars between the end of FP3 and the race. So like their cars set in. So not a great sign. I mean, it's going to be hard, I think, for him to sort of get anywhere near like the top half of the points. I mean, you'd expect him to sort of move up into the top 10. I mean, you've got a couple of Hasses up there, and like they tend to shred through their tires quite quickly. So I think you could sort of put Mercedes ahead of them. But other than that, it's going to be a really hard day for Hamilton, and not a great performance by him and the team.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll move on to Q3 as well and finish up with the last session of the qualifying. Charles Leclerc, he looked on it all weekend and straight away into pole position. Bet Carlos Sainz by, I think it was just under half a tenth at the end, but more importantly, he bet Max Verstappen to pole, who'll start alongside him tomorrow, of course, with Sainz's penalty. So what did you make of Leclerc this week? He's been really on it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that Ferrari looked quick straight away, really. Like through the qualifying, it was rare that it wasn't one of the two on top of the times. So we all thought, like, sort of assumed that they'd sort of be in a battle for pole. Obviously, you can never rule out Verstappen. Like, he's usually the kind of guy who sort of sets a really quick lap right at the end when no one's expecting it. But yeah, something about that Ferrari just works really well at this track. And like they've looked really good, like you said, all the weekend. And like that's sort of what it makes it doubly disappointing for Sainz is he's gonna start P12, if I'm correct. And that's through no fault of his own. Like he's had a drain that's hit his car and ruined it. So yeah, that's doubly disappointing for Ferrari, who looked on for a good score of points between both drivers. But obviously, Leclerc's still P1. We've had this thing of Leclerc and pole positions a lot. He's not great at converting them. And weirdly, I think Max has actually got more conversions from Leclerc's poles than Leclerc has. So, like, is that going to be another tally added tomorrow? Like, it's going to be hard because while the Red Bull car doesn't look overly quick on this circuit, the Red Bull car does over a full race length sort of, you get a bit of an advantage. They'll sort of catch up that little one lap pace. So yeah, it's gonna be a good battle. I'm excited for it. It's gonna be good to see those two on the front row. But yeah, Leclerc's performance is really good. Like he was setting fastest lap. So just a great performance by him. And that car, for some reason, works really well in Vegas. Maybe they're one of the few drivers that like to see the race there every week, because I think a few others would like to leave quite quickly.
Yeah, I think the majority of the grid want to leave by the sounds of things.
Mhm.
Before we finish up, Sam, I'll just ask you about Williams. Obviously, fifth and sixth for them tomorrow, starting on the grid. Albon fifth, Sargent sixth. What did you make of that? That was a really, really big result for them.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like we were talking about McLaren, who knew their car wouldn't be great. Williams was the complete opposite. Like if anyone knows about that Williams car, it absolutely loves a straight line. Like it's so good, it's so quick, and like it's got hardly any downforce, so it just flies. So I think when they saw the circuit layer came out, and you had, I think, almost like 3 long straights, they must have been licking their lips, thinking, "Yes, please, we will take some of that. That's going to be absolutely ideal." So yeah, obviously Albon, we all expect to do quite well, but yeah, Sargent did really well as well. Like it's his first Q3 since the Dutch Grand Prix. I think it's only the second in his career, if I'm right. So yeah, that Williams car is really quick on the circuit, and it's going to be exciting for tomorrow because you've got DRS obviously in a few of those straight lines. Like they're going to presumably be flying by some people. So yeah, I think both drivers could be on for a good point score tomorrow. Like especially Albon, like he's obviously the experienced one. He's always proven quite capable of getting a really high point score. So yeah, I think if I had to pick one car to watch tomorrow, I think it'd be the Williams. I think they're in for some quite exciting races. Like as long as they don't bin it into a wall, like I think both drivers could do really well.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of cars they're going to be watching tomorrow, Sam, what would be your predictions for the podium?
Ooh, a tricky one. I think it's a toss-up between obviously Max and Charles for P1, but I think I'm going to give the edge to Max just because, like I said, over a race distance, I think the Red Bull does become the superior car. I think Ferrari can match it over 1 lap pace, but just the course of a race, I think Red Bull sort of they're more on it, aren't they, than Ferrari? And I think Max is a better driver than Charles. I think that will come out. So I think I'll go Verstappen first, Leclerc P2, and that there's a few names for P3, isn't there? There's a lot of choice. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Do you know what? I haven't said how good Williams are. I'm going to go Albon. Why not? Throw him in there. I think this track is made for that Williams car, and if he can sort of keep it clean, like do some nice overtakes, why not? Let's put him P3. But like I said, you could draw like one of any 6 names out of a hat, and they could be P3. But yeah, I'm going to say Albon. Why not?
Wow. Well, I suppose you never know. First ever race in the circuit, I suppose anything could happen. So let's see. So, well, thank you very much for joining me even this morning, Sam. Hope you enjoy the race tomorrow. And thank you very much for joining us again on Track GP. Make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe, you do all that nice stuff for us. And make sure to come and join us on the channel tomorrow morning, bright and early, 5:30. We'll be having a watch along for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So see you guys then, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. See you later.